It is about you. You are the selling point, and the landscape is changing. So be your authentic self because no one wants to go to work being miserable all day. Look at your own resume, look at your own LinkedIn, and look at your impact and what you have provided for that other company. And if you write things in that context, you're going to talk to the next employer.
In my opinion, it's about giving the customer what they really want and just blowing their mind once they get it. And that's what I really love to see, honestly.
Get people to do more of home cooking, home cooked meals, healthy meals, so we can all live long and happy.
I'm very proud to be a mom because, not for nothing, women are amazing.
Oh my God, the sacrifice, and how we make it look so easy.
I was just telling Joanne before we got on the call, I said, I had to run from my daughter's school. They had an Easter egg hunt. I said, all right, Mom, I gotta go to work. But, you know, just as moms, we make it happen, you know, supernatural abilities. We are the example for them, you know, and I know that with them being a better version of us.
You have to try. You never know how creative you are until you try. Because I didn't think I was creative. I found my creative side during a horrible time in my life.
Hello, everyone. Happy Thursday. It is October the 10th, and we are back at our Lunch and Learn Thursdays. Today is a very interesting day. As you all are aware, we are focusing on voter registration. But before, let me even introduce myself. So hello to everyone who is just joining us for the first time. My name is Athenia Rodney, CEO and founder of Juneteenth NYC. With over 25 years experience as a logistics professional, I orchestrate successful and profitable Juneteenth events, and I specialize in vendor coordination, streamlining operations, and fostering strategic community relationships to strengthen pipelines for equitable growth and economic impacts for Black-owned businesses. And that is exactly what we do here. And on today, we are going to be talking about another area of voting that we are all not very aware of, which is called civic engagement. And this is going to be a replay from something that we've done in the past with Hercules Reed, one of our former Black kings. He has also been on our Lunch and Learn in the past, and the content that he shared was so relevant. So just to give you a little bit of background on what civic engagement means, it refers to the involvement of individuals, all of us. And last week, if you followed us with Angus, we talked about the different ways that you can be involved in a local level. And so Hercules is going to be able to explain a little bit further about what that looks like in activities and aimed at improving their communities and influencing decisions that impact their lives. This can include a wide range of actions such as voting, volunteering, participating in community meetings, joining advocacy groups, engaging in public discussions, or working with local government and organizations to address social issues. The goal of civic engagement is to promote the well-being of society overall, to foster a sense of responsibility, meaning that we all have a responsibility to make the change that we want to see in the world and to create positive change through collective efforts. Because we cannot do anything alone, we have to do it in a united effort. So we're going to bring up Hercules Reed's pre-recording. It is very good. I hope you take out some paper and pen and take notes, and I'll be back afterwards.
Afternoon. Happy lunchtime to everyone who is partaking. I just want to say thank you first and foremost to the Juneteenth NYC organization for the great work that they've been doing and for having me here today to share something that I am very passionate about. And as we go through this presentation, I hope that you learn to have that same passion because this is about using the most powerful tools that everybody here has access to. And when we think about empowerment, how do you empower someone other than to give them the tools to have the power? And so with that, I'm excited. Let's get this presentation going. So when I think about civic engagement, as I said, I think that the two most important and powerful things that we have access to I'm using one, my voice. And look what I'm able to do with my voice. The second thing is your vote. And we're going to get into that aspect a little bit later. But to me and all of my experiences, those are the two most powerful things that we all, as American citizens, have access to. And I'm going to say that specifically because I want you to understand the context in which this presentation is in. It is as an American citizen and catered to folks who live right here in New York City. That's a disclaimer. This is catered to folks right here in New York City, but I'm sure in every other state, most of it is very much the same or very alike. So again, my name is Hercules Reed, and we're here because we want you to be the change. Today's agenda, I'm going to go into who I am, how I got here, what gives me the credibility to have this conversation. Then we're going to go into what is your and our superpower, our voice, our vote. Why does using it matter, and how to use effectively your voice and your vote, and next steps and resources so that you can actively get engaged starting today. So who am I? Who is Hercules? Yes, that is my real name. Most people are always like, is that your real name? And I'm like, yes, it is. Thank you, mom and dad. Son of two Jamaican immigrants who came to New York for a better life. I'm born and raised right here in New York. I am a New Yorker, and I love my city and my state, and everybody who is here. And so this is a little bit of my resume in a very quick, speedy way, and how I got to today. So I started out getting engaged in 2015 when I ran for student government president at City Tech, a CUNY school downtown Brooklyn. I was an architect student who had prior experiences by going to a historically Black college, Delaware State University. While I was there in 2010, I joined student government. I found out about it. I originally went to HBCU to learn about being Black in America because I understood that it's not really something that's just taught to you. You have to go into spaces and educate yourself. And so I went there, and those were the best 2 years of my life because I really figured out what it meant to be a Black American, but also a Caribbean American here in America. We could talk about that another day. So when I got into City Tech, transferred, and I thought about all of these leadership experiences I had over time and what I was able to do to bring about change right there on my college campus. We had a budget. We were able to vote. We were able to make decisions and make changes right there on our campus. I was like, I want to do that again, but at a higher level. And so when I got to City Tech as an architect student, I said there wasn't a lot of representation as Black architects, but also in the architecture field when it comes to politics. I saw it right away. And so I wanted to bridge the gap and become that person, become that architect that is not facing all of these policies that are stopping me from having access, but being the person who can give access to people who are in need. So who knew what student government really was going to entail, but it went from being student government president. I learned about lobbying and advocacy and all of these things, which we're about to go into. I also had an opportunity to be a vice chair for legislative affairs. What is that? Well, we craft policy for higher education. So if you live in New York City or New York State, there are a group of students who sit down and create a list of priorities that elected officials should be focusing on when it comes to higher education, like tuition costs for public higher ed. We focused on tuition, quality of education, and making sure we had an excellence in our education system, right? And so there's actual students while you're studying, while you're working, doing all these things, who take the time to focus on CUNY, who services 500,000 students, right? So we're representing, by using our voice, 500,000 people. And so during that time, New York City people, whether you go into Baruch, you're going to College of Staten Island, whether you're going to City Tech in Brooklyn, or you're going to BMCC in Manhattan or in the Bronx Community College or whatever, we were fighting for you. That turned into the mayor at the time, Bill de Blasio, was building out this task force because of our advocacy work to see what is going on in the CUNY system over the years and what can we do to move it forward. They selected me because at that time, I was using my voice. I was someone that they knew about because I was always using my voice when I had an opportunity. The second phase of my life was after that, where I graduated college now in 2017, and I started my first real job. I got hired to be a legislative director, which again is crafting and organizing with students on higher education. Went from that, I decided I wanted to resign. Instead of me, fighting for just higher education, as I learned along the way, there's so many issues. Let me expand on that. There's so many issues right here in my community. Let me be a voice. Again, voice. So I ran for city council. I dropped out the race. There was a lot happening at a little bit of time, and I was not prepared. I wanted more experience, so I joined government. I started working at Brooklyn Borough Hall for the Brooklyn Borough president, then Eric Adams, during COVID-19, where because I used my voice and I actively got engaged, I was able to help people during the pandemic in Brooklyn and all over the city get through a terrible crisis. And as we know, 2020 came around, COVID was there, people flew out into the streets when George Floyd was murdered. I, along with an amazing group of other young individuals, young leaders that I met in my time as a student advocate, hit the streets, created an organization called Strategy for Black Lives. And I continued my work understanding policy and strategy and became the legislative director for the organization, organizing marches, protests, and the alike, fighting for qualified immunity, and so many other things. Then in the third phase was where I'm at now, 2021 and 2023. I ran for the New York State Assembly. After doing all this work, I said to myself, now I am ready. I'm ready to use my voice again and have a platform. I've done the work. I've done the research. I've built an organization of people who support me. It's time to represent them. Didn't work out. It's fine. I had a great election and great experience, but it led me to where I came to next. I then went on. I was also working at the School of Construction Authority, where I had an opportunity to learn about architecture and how it connects to the city, which is what I went to school for. And now I am currently at the mayor's office as a Brooklyn North Borough Director and citywide youth coordinator. And so I say all that only to say, this is why I think it's important for me to have this conversation with you, because I am only 31 years old. And it's important that we don't look at just our elders for their experiences in these spaces. So what is our superpower? As mentioned earlier, it is our voice. Again, I'm using it right now. Your voice is something protected by the Constitution. So even though somebody may disagree with you and what you're saying, you have the right to say it with your chest, right? That's it. Your other superpower, your next biggest power that you have access to here in America is your vote. By law, you're able to vote as a citizen by 18, very young. And locally, you can get involved and vote at your community board and many other places that your voice can be heard at the local level, where your input is actually going towards change. But why does any of this even matter, right? Often we're looking at people are making us compromise, but sometimes compromise is a win in these spaces, because getting nothing is also not productive in us moving forward. And so in using our voice, as mentioned, one, why should you use it? Why can you use it? And why should you not mute it? Is because it's protected under the Constitution. Also, we use our voice to hold people accountable. We often elect people and then we shut up and we sit back and we talk to our friends and we complain. No, go talk to them. Use your voice. Maintaining your quality of life. Oh my goodness, I hate how dirty my streets are. I hate how my school is. I hate. We all say it. I hate this person. So use your voice to help maintain that quality of life in which you live in. Can't afford my housing, can't afford my rent. Now, folks, this is not a political science class, so I can only touch slightly on these things. But if you want me to go further, I'm more willing to dig deeper into these things. But you use your voice to maintain your quality of life. You use your voice to share your ideas and your opinions, right? It doesn't just matter when you're upset, right? And when things are not working. You should always use your voice. And this is not just in politics. This is a life lesson, really, when I'm talking to you today about why this is so important. This is a life lesson. Not just in politics is your voice powerful and important. It's important and valuable every day of your life because it is the tools that you need to share how you feel and what you're thinking. Your vote is also constitutionally protected. City, state, and federal representatives are elected by a vote. Local level opportunities, like I mentioned, your community board, which impacts your streets, your schools, and programming that happens right here, it comes to a vote. Advising elected officials on what to do or not to do, it happens at the community board local level with a vote, right? And also it helps to change potential outcomes. So the results, again, if somebody has a problem with your vote or your voice, or they try to impact it or stop it, they have now opened themselves up to being sued. You have a lawsuit. That's it. You are empowered to understand that the moment someone tries to stop you from using your voice or your vote, you are constitutionally protected to sue. Also, accountability matters. Also, we have to have a say on what happens in our communities because we're impacted by it. And lastly, again, the people united, when we use our voice and our vote, we can never be defeated. When we think about why we've gotten as far as we've gotten and why we haven't gotten any further, well, because folks, when it was working, it was because we was united. And until we find a way to reunite in a way that's impactful for all of us, well, we're going to be where we are. But that's why we're having these conversations. Because again, your voice has rights. Under the First Amendment in the Constitution, it protects your freedom of speech for the press and the right to assemble. That means you can have press conferences, rallies, protests, and use your voice at them. So what's stopping you, right? You can go to your elected officials, schedule a meeting, and tell them how you feel. But some people say, well, I know I have my voice, but how do I use it? I don't know really what to say, when to say it. Look, it's okay. You don't have to always know how to do things necessarily the right way, but we want to think strategically. Strategy will always be the know-how, because sometimes if you're strategic, you learn how, right? And so when we think about our voice, it's important, again, to speak up and speak out by joining your local community boards, by joining and going to your local precinct meetings that talk about things from abandoned cars to sanitation on the streets to infrastructure projects like shelters coming into your community or new affordable housing or the lack thereof. That happens right there at the community board, which you can join at 16. Also, once we have electeds in office again, are we holding them accountable? And I'm saying this a few times so that it resonates. Sometimes we vote somebody in and we like them, or we don't, and then we sit back and allow them to do whatever they want to do. But we voted for them. Our job is to hold them accountable. And if they do not do what we ask them to do, to vote them out. That's what a democracy is. It's not to sit around for 20 years, 10 years with the same elected official and see things consistently go in the wrong direction. Folks, that means we need new leadership. We need a new voice. And maybe it's yours that is missing from the conversation. Because when we're silent, it only proves one thing. We don't care. We often wonder, like, why do people think we don't care? Why do people think that this doesn't matter to us? Well, because they don't hear you. They don't hear you. They don't see you, right? And when they see you, it's aggressive. It's full of passion, and they can't see through the anger and the passion because it's not a conversation anymore. We're yelling, we're upset, we don't really want to talk or have a dialogue. It's a monologue now, and we can't come to solutions. The reality is that by even donating to elected officials is a version of using your voice, right? Not because they ask you to donate. No, you donate because you want to be able to say, like, I supported you and you need to listen to me. It's another tool in the toolbox. It's also you saying, again, I'm going to put my money where my mouth is. Point blank, period. We buy stuff, we invest in stuff all the time. It's the same concept because as you invest, you want to return. And so as you invest possibly into an elected or their campaign or any initiative, right? It doesn't have to be an elected, it could be an initiative to clean up your streets. You can invest into that too, right? When you put your money there, you now have a right to say, hey, what's going on here? I don't like what I'm seeing. I mean, you have that right as an everyday person, but we understand that everything is not as it seems. So that's another conversation. Again, what you say matters. Your voice matters. Who you are matters. So stop playing shy. Stop playing in the shadows. Stop playing the background. Like, the world is waiting for you. The world is waiting to hear from you. And often you have the solution that we all need. And why does using our voice matters? I always think about a quote that resonates forever in my mind. And it's from Emmett Till's mother. Most of us know that story. But basically what she said is that she knew what was going on in the world around her, in Chicago, around racism and police brutality and all of these different things. She knew, she heard, but it had not impacted her. It did not come to her street, her neighborhood, into her home. And so what did she do? She did what most of us do. She didn't use her voice. She didn't speak up. She didn't join the cause. She didn't do anything. She sat back and she watched, which most of us often are doing. And then what happened? It came right to her doorstep in a very horrific way. Tragedy hit her door. And in that moment, she realized that what happens to one of us happens to all of us. So what happens to one person's education happens to all of our education. Our neighborhood cleanliness, it's not just one, it's all of us. Our transportation, it's all of us. Our housing, it's all of us. And so our job is to figure out who else cares and to bring those people together, to be a unified voice on that issue, on that topic, to show people we care. Whether it's your teachers, your principals, your mom, your dad, your elected officials, community members, your friends, get them engaged, get them involved. And now we think about the vote, our second most powerful thing, also protected by the Constitution, right? So powerful that since it existed and we existed as people of color in America, they have done everything they can do to take it away. If it wasn't powerful, folks, if our vote did not matter, if it was irrelevant for us to vote, why would people try to take it away year after year, generation after generation? Please answer me that question. Elected officials, the most powerful people, trying to take away our right to vote, and you telling me it doesn't matter? Folks, there were multiple amendments just to expand people's right to vote, just to give them the actual opportunity to vote. That's why it's powerful. They did an amendment to make sure Black people could vote. That was the 15th Amendment. And as it goes up, once you got to the 19th Amendment, that gave women. So you telling me that they had to put this in the Constitution in order for us to have the right, and it's not important? They didn't try to stop people. I mean, nothing was happening. No. It's important because they try to take it away because they know what a vote can do. So they made sure they protected it for Black people. They made sure they protected it for women. Then they made sure that they could not charge you to go and vote. They couldn't tax you for voting. And again, I say these things mainly to say to you, something that is not important, nobody puts all that effort into it. And so your vote, your superpower. When you don't vote, you still vote. Wow. That one hit me. It always hits me. And I always tell people who don't vote, when you don't vote, you know you just voted, because that gets counted. Your not vote also gets counted. And I'm going to tell you how it gets counted. It gets counted when politicians, elected officials, look at who voted for them and where they need to prioritize in the neighborhoods and areas. They look at who used their voice to vote and who they need to respond to. Your vote is power. When you don't vote, you vote because money is allocated to these elected officials, to the community. And you now don't get a say because you didn't vote. And when you're upset at the education system, when you're upset at how the politicians are spending money, when you're upset at the policies, when you're upset at your taxes, when you're upset, guess what? You didn't vote. Why not? And when one of us don't vote, it's not just one of us not voting. We're setting a trend in the universe that's saying, like, it doesn't matter. And so, again, there's many levels we can vote on: city, state, federal level. Again, why is it so important? Well, they try to take it away. And if it wasn't important, why would they try that? And again, from the age of 16, you can locally get involved right in your community about speed bumps, about tree pruning, about playgrounds, about you name it. They talk about it. They go over it. They review it. They're made the presentations first, sometimes even before they go to elected officials. Elected officials come to community boards and say, can you tell other people that y'all support what we're doing? Sounds like power to me. Also, going back to elections, when you don't vote, you vote. Elections have consequences. And I mean, I'm not here to talk politics, but like, think about Donald Trump, because very big opportunity for a point in case. A lot of people assumed he wasn't going to win. They didn't go and vote. And he got elected for 4 years, not 8, 4. Sorry, make sure I get that on the screen. 4. And in those 4 years, he made changes and impacts to our America, because we're here, we live here, so it is ours till you leave, that are going to impact us for generations. Every president, for that matter, every mayor, every governor, they make decisions and these elect for generations. If you're young and you're going to get old, what they do now is going to impact you when you're a grandma. If you're a grandma and you got grandkids, what they do now is going to impact your grandkids. And so however you want to cut the turkey, however you want to slice the bread, elections have consequences, folks. And every time we don't vote and we don't show up, you're only hurting yourself, self-inflicted wounds. Now, when you don't vote again, your money, your tax-paying dollars that you pay and want to see utilized to the best of its abilities, well, guess you got no control over that either now. And so when we think about the change that we haven't seen and we're getting frustrated, we're like annoyed at why some of us are using our voice, because this is not saying that people aren't using their voice and not trying, right? It's to say, like, as a whole, we have to come together and do more and do it better and be more strategized. Without a strategy, you fail. If you fail to plan, you plan to fail. And so when we think about why change doesn't happen, we have to understand that delays to change are because often you don't even know who can fix it. You have an issue, you're mad at the wrong person. You're going and spending time and energy talking and advocating to someone that can't actually do anything, like physically, tangibly. Not that they can't use their voice or their platform, which is important. But I mean, like, in this world, you need to know who the key players are that can make the change. Not who can have the conversation, but who can make the change. And we get angry because of our actual issue, which we have the right to be. Look, I am struggling like everybody else, in the sense, student loan debt, can't afford to live in, you name it, right? So I'm going through it too. And we get upset at the circumstances, and then we blindly go into these spaces to have conversations, and we're not strategized. I saw a lot of that, you know, during the 2020 Black Lives Matter movement. We did get to the streets, but were we strategized in a way for generational change of an impact? Or was it for the moment? Was it impacting the moment? Right? And so, one, who can actually fix the problem? Very big flag. Find that out. Really understand that. What are long-term versus short-term fixes? Sometimes we want a change that's going to take 10 years, no matter how you cut it. And even if they say yes, it's still going to take 10 years. And for about 8 of them, you're going to be like, why hasn't nothing changed? So in the process of looking for long-term change, where is the short-term change? What can we do in the immediate? What can we do right now to alleviate the issue, the stress, the concern? And who does it impact? Other than you, who else can't afford rent? I mean, right now, everybody. But in that event, right, bring all those people together. If everybody can't afford rent, why are we not in the streets saying exactly that? We have a few folks at every community board meeting, a couple rallies here and there, but there's millions of people in the city who are feeling the same impacts that everybody is right now. Let's think about what is their connection to these issues, right? How do we connect the landlord to the tenant where it's actually two people being impacted? We're often looking at it as a tenant and the landlord separately, but look, if a landlord loses his home that you live in, where you gonna live? And if the tenant can't afford to live in your home that you own as a landlord, how are you gonna pay your mortgage and your rent? And so it's not either or, it's a win-win. We're here together. We live and die together. Everybody's impacted by everybody. We got to stop this versus. Now, society has forced us to be upset and angry and do these type of things. But trust me, we all in this struggle together, one way or the other. Now, some folks have an upper hand. Again, this is not a political science course. I'm just giving general concepts. Now, again, many voices are silent. A lot of people care. They're not talking. Closed mouths don't get fed, they say. Now, when I talked about sometimes we don't know who to be mad at, who can make the change. And so here, right here in New York City, we have 3 branches of government that are right here representing us, that every election, these are folks on the ballot. These are people you vote for or don't. The mayor, at the city level, you have the mayor, city council members, public advocate, the comptroller, the borough presidents, the district attorney. And here's another fun fact. When I talked about it's your coins when you don't vote, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, every single, maybe 5 of those titles, they get money to spend on you and in your community. And you get a say, or you can make a request on how they spend it. Did you know that? But if you don't vote, how are you going to be at the table, bro? And so we don't think about these connections. And so at the state level, same thing, right? The governor, top of the food chain, but she has state senators, state assembly, attorney general, comptroller, judges. That in itself is a whole component that we never talk about. And I don't have enough time in this session to talk about judges. But trust me, those folks who decide jail or no jail, they're on your ballot first. All right. And it's not just jail or no jail that these people decide, right? When we talk about the Supreme Court decision for Roe v. Wade, for the abortion, like these people were on a ballot first. Every single one of them were on a ballot at one point. And you could have voted for them or voted for somebody else. So when we're mad at the judicial system or the judges and what they're doing or not doing, well, did you vote? Did you vote? Did you use your power? And I'm empowering you and I'm telling you why you should, because then you get to be someone whose voice and their vote comes together and makes change. President, right? And so 3 different levels of government, and each have a different responsibility role. And what are they? So in the city, first and foremost, if you don't know, local government gets its power, the city, the mayor, Mayor Adams, whoever the mayor is, gets its power from the state. So automatically, without even going further, that means the city does not operate on its own and cannot. Period. However, the city does get the resources to oversee parks, oversee the police, the fire department, medical services, courts, public transportation, streets, sewers. But guess what? That power was granted by the state. So they get to actually shift, twist policy on what happens in the city with or without the mayor. Think about that. Now, when we think about the laws and the courts, those are also things that the city can do citywide to impact what goes on locally, right? But again, this is the city. It's the lowest but most important level, because this is what happens where our everyday is being impacted or not. Everything we're saying, everything we do and don't mostly like has to do with quality of life. And a lot of our quality of life is supported or not by local government. Then we have the state. The state is who sets up these local governments to begin with and does a lot of the administering of the funds and resources. And though the laws of the state always trump, no pun intended, the city laws. And so if the governor says you cannot buy soda for $1, and the mayor says I want to sell it for 50 cents. I mean, the governor says we have to sell soda for $1, and the mayor says I want to sell it 50 cents. She can sue the city for wrong price, or someone can, right? Because the law says it's $1, or if it's over, right? And so, like, if the law is set, anything that happens over or under it, you're breaking the law, right? That the state set at the city level. And so beyond that is the federal level, and the federal laws supersede both of those, city and the state. And so when it comes to it, federal government can shut everything down or get everything going, right? And so the federal government, their job is to make the money so that they can disperse the money to the state and to the local government. The state, who again, they fund elected officials. The state funds elected officials. That's your tax-paying dollars. They fund public safety. They fund transportation. The MTA, when we think about how good or bad the MTA is, that's a state thing. You cannot necessarily go to the mayor and say, Mayor, fix the MTA. Because the mayor is going to say, well, I can only do but so much. And now we're mad at the mayor, but really it's the governor in that instance, in that situation, who can make the change, right? Or when we think about particularly, right now in New York City, the migrant crises, honestly, this starts at the federal level. Even though the state and the city can do as they want in the way of following the law that the federal level has set, they're still binded by the federal government. And so we cannot be necessarily upset at the city level, unless we're talking about inactivity. Because again, I want to be clear, I'm only talking about the broad stroke of these conversations, not these individual political folks and what they do and don't do, talking about the general conversation. The migrant crisis is a federal matter, so whoever the mayor is of New York City can only do but so much, right? Without breaking laws or going around government in a way that does not serve its purpose. So I hope that in all that I said, in a way, it opened your ears and eyes up to understanding a little bit more. I think that there's a lot of the disconnect that we experience as citizens, Americans, whatever, is that we just don't have sometimes the information. And when we don't have the information, it's hard to strategize. It's hard to know who to be mad at. It's hard to know who to work with, and to actually get the change that we want to see. But in my lifetime, I've seen change. And when I say that, I mean, it started out as an idea, and 5 years later, it turned into a reality. And sometimes we forget that change does take time. And where we are as a society did not just happen overnight. It did not happen 2 years ago. We've been going in the wrong direction for generations. And so realistically, it's going to take generations to really shift where we're trajecting to. But it's possible. It's actually possible. A lot of folks are jaded right now because of what they're seeing and how they're feeling. I always like to tell people I don't like politics, even though I just said all that and I know all this stuff and even more. I don't like politics. But whether or not we like politics, it exists with or without us. And so I say to you, why not be at the table and let your voice be heard? Why not vote? If there's a system that rules us, laws and policy rule us. If there's a system that rules us, why not be at the table? Why not participate? Why not shoot your shot at making it the way that you want it? In New York City, we are at a climax of leadership in the sense that we, for the first time, have a lot of powerful positions filled by people of color. And that took years, generations from the time that they said, here's the 15th Amendment that says Black people can vote. It's 2023, and a community, a sea of Black people and people of color voted for a Black mayor. Or if we look at Obama, where again, that same thing that was fought for all those generations ago allowed an opportunity for our first Black president. And again, we can't look at the first and be like, we expected change to happen in those 8 years, because folks, we're talking about generations. And so we have to continue. We can't stop. We can't take our foot off the gas. And that's what this conversation is about. We cannot afford to go backwards. And the only way we go backwards is if we take our foot off the pedal, because we are so upset at what is happening. And so I encourage you, tell a friend to tell a friend about these resources. 1, find out who your representative is. Many of y'all living in this world, in these neighborhoods, in these communities, don't even know who represents you. You might know the mayor, you might know the president, you might know the governor, but you don't know your city council, you don't know your state rep, and they all represent you. They all make decisions about your life. And so here you are. Here's a tool, www.mygovnyc.org. That is who represents me. You can find out all of that information there. Register to vote online. You could vote online now. You don't got to go into nobody's post office. You don't got to mail nothing in. There's no longer excuses on why it's hard to register to vote. From the DMV, which allows you to have a license and ID, they also now allow you to register to vote. So this website we have here, e-register.vote.nyc, that is the New York City Board of Elections website, which will allow you to register to vote online tonight, right now, if you don't want to wait. Urgency, folks, is the key to success. Attend your next Build the Block meeting, community council meeting, which happen right here in your local communities, where they make and talk about things, and you can bring up your issues that you're having and work to get them addressed. It's work. That's why I hesitated. It's not an easy thing to show up to the meeting and think that everything's going to be fixed. It's work, but it's possible. www.nyc.gov, and you're looking at your NYPD precincts. You find your local precinct, and they have the list on their website of when and where their precinct council meetings and their Build a Block meetings are. Find your local community board. Every neighborhood has a community board, and those community boards make decisions about those neighborhoods. And so, again, look for your community boards depending on your borough. Each borough has a different look, but they all have community boards. Sign up to testify. Did you know that you can use your voice and tell actual elected officials how you feel about something in a public setting where it goes on record and they can't say they did not ever know that this was said? So I encourage you to look and sign up for the next city council hearing that you have an opportunity to attend, where they're talking about art and culture, where they're talking about education, they're talking about housing, when they're talking about whatever your topic is, they have hearings for it. And so I encourage you to go and either listen or even have the courage to testify. That is council.nyc.gov /testify /. And lastly, we all need to know how to operate in the city, who does what, how to get in contact with different city agencies so that I can have an issue addressed or get a direct contact information. But did you know the city has this thing called the Green Book? It's the official NYC directory where you can look up agencies, you can find the comptroller, the public advocate, find out what they do, what are their roles, and more details on who's on their staff and their team that is supposed to respond and address certain issues. And so you know, again, who to be mad at or who to work with on an issue. Because at the end of the day, it's either you get a compromise or you walk away with the whole thing. But the goal is walking away with a victory and continuing to work towards a goal. And with that, I want to say thank you for tuning in to my TED Talk on civic engagement, right? And when I thought about civic engagement, I thought about what are the most important parts of civic engagement other than using your voice and your vote. And doing both of those things, it is a Herculean duty because it's hard, even though it's easy, because it takes commitment to change. We can't just want change. We have to be committed to the change. We have to see it through. One of the things I got to see through was the DREAM Act, but it took 5 years. I could have sat on the sidelines, but I had opportunities to continue to stay engaged, to use my voice in a different way, in a different platform. That 5 years later, the state passed a law that for the first time ever, students can have access to financial aid, scholarships, and stipends if you're undocumented.
Wow. I don't even know. Yeah. So as you can see, he said a lot. I had to look. I got my notes. I'm writing multiple notes. I went from the paper. I started off here. I went here. Look, it was a lot. But so thank you again, Hercules Reed. As he shared, he is one of the advocates at the mayor's office, and he has worked tirelessly in different avenues. He said some things that I wanted to repurpose or reshare. Who are you mad at? Like when you said that, I was like, ooh, that hit hard, because so many people will pick up the phone and they'll tell me. And it's funny because I'm sitting there sharing this link out to people because people are calling me and asking me questions about certain things, and they having issues and they can't get certain permits and they can't this and they can't that. And I was like, well, go to your elected official. This is what they are there for. This is why. She's like, oh, they're not going to be able to do nothing for me. I'm like, yes, they can. That's why they're elected. That's what their role is. So just hearing this again, like this is so timely. And this, I think, was done a couple of like maybe 2 years ago, actually, or a year ago, should I say. At when you get mad, are you speaking to the right people? What's your purpose for just getting mad and sharing it to a friend who doesn't have any authority to fix it? So when you are mad about something, go to the proper people. And he talks about the Green Book, which I wasn't even aware of. It's a document for you to be able to find out who can you speak to about what. So look up at Google search the Green Book. Being able to register to vote online, like I thought that was really important point. There we go too, because we are going into an election right now, and one of the things that he said was when you don't vote, you still vote. And I was like, yeah, when you don't vote, you still vote. And people are like, no, that's not true. My vote doesn't really count. It doesn't matter. And it's like, whether you vote or not, it both of them matter. So you might as well use your vote as in a demonstrative way to create change than to allow it to be changed for you. And I always say to people, we will sit there and we'll go back to complaining, right? We'll go back to complaining about something not being changed, but we won't go to the proper channels, or we won't do the proper things to make the change necessary. He also talked about stop playing shy, and that piece about Emmett Till, mom, and what she said, and he didn't read it, but I wanted to read it. 2 months ago, I had a nice apartment in Chicago. I had a good job. I had a son. When something happened to the Negroes in the South, I said, that's their business, not mine. And how many times do you say that that's not my business? That is theirs. I didn't have nothing to do with that. That person that got killed over there, that's their business. That's not mine. That person who had the flood or the fire, who got put it out of their home, that's their business, not mine. All of the things that we see. And I know it's a lot, and we don't have to be in everything, but be in something. Don't just sit there and be and not make a change in your community that you want to see. Now that I know how wrong I was, the murder of my son has shown me that what happens to any of us, what happens to one person, can happen to you too. A fire can happen to you. A loss of job can happen to you. You being on the street, you being kicked out of your country, you. It can all happen to you and to me. So if we don't do something, if we don't say something, if we don't make a change, then we are a part of the problem. Elections have consequences, so make decisions for generations. What he talked about with our former president being in office and the changes that he made that will take 30 and 40 years to be able to undo, that makes a difference. So we have to think about, is the person that we are elected into office today, are they going to make the proper changes for my children and my grandchildren, for my nieces and my nephews? Are they going to make the changes that we need to see? Because I may not be here to receive it. And we have, who are our biggest voters right now? Our senior citizens. And guess what? A lot of them won't even be here to see the ramifications of what their vote actually does. So please, please, please go out and vote. And then last but not least, he said, take commitment to change. Make a commitment to change. Make a commitment to be the voice that you want to see in your community. So I just wanted to highlight those things because they impressed so much on my own heart that I wanted to make sure to push out to you all again as well. Again, my name is Athenia Rodney. I'm the CEO and founder of Juneteenth NYC. This month for us is going to be talking about candidates, because to me that is the end process. We are talking about the process to get to the end. So join us every Thursday so that we can continue to have conversations about that. Share it with other people, like and follow us so that you continue to learn about what we're doing each and every week, and just continue to be present. Make your voice known. A lot of people have reached out to me, and I appreciate that. And we look forward to working with you in the future in some form or fashion if you are interested. So thank you, and have a great one. Bye.